What's up, guys? So in this video, she's gone because of me. 1945. Planes arrived. Imagine waking up in a disastrous world where everything's completely and utterly fine. I mean, besides my brother suspiciously packing valuables into the dirt, oh, and my mother excessively catering to me, everything seems to be going pretty swell and dandy. Oh, yeah, those are bombs. Putting all these jokes aside, though, this instantaneous shock was a sad reality for millions of individuals in the age of World War II, which is when this film was based around. But there's an even deeper and more twisted meaning behind this story. On October 10th, 1930, a child who will go on to create one of the greatest war stories in history was born in Kamakura, Japan. He's known as Akiyuki Nosaka, the author of Grave of the Fireflies. In Osaka's extremely early life, his biological mother sadly passed away from childbirth, so this caused him to be adopted by his aunt, Miss Aiko, and her unspecified husband in Kobe, Japan. And yeah, everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly for Nosaka and his new family. So, around 14 years later, they all collectively decided that it was time for a new addition to be added to their story. So on that same year, in 1944, they adopted a baby girl named Keiko. Now, Keiko was a really hyper and very silly child who genuinely looked up to Mr. Nosaka as if he was a superhero of some sort. But superheroes aren't real. In 1945, just a year after Keiko's adoption, the infamous bombing of Kobe City occurred. This attack happened near the very end of the Second World War, and in that same attack, their family house was completely destroyed. But Akiyuki Nosaka was hiding something from the story all along. So as we know, Seita, the main character, is a representation of Mr. Nosaka. Then that would mean Seita's mother is a representation of Nosaka's aunt, Miss Aiko. Following that, Seita's stepfather represents the unspecified husband of Miss Aiko. Now this obviously means that Seita's little sister would be Keiko, right? Well, yes, but here's what really went down the day of the raid. In the bright morning, the US Air Force arrived to initiate an air raid. The family then wakes up due to the noises, and Nosaka begins to dig valuables into the dirt. Baby Keiko comes to investigate out of pure curiosity, and instead of Miss Aiko going upstairs and passing away due to the house fire, all three of them actually run away together and make it outside. And it was actually Miss Aiko who was the one that saved and carried baby Keiko out of the house fire, for a certain period of time at least. Most likely due to terrible burns or some sort of medical reason, she sent Mr. Nosaka and baby Keiko to a widowed relative of hers. To this day, there's a very gray line in how Miss Aiko actually passed away, because we see she ends up passing away in the shelter, but there's a lot of hidden facts behind it. But what we do know is that Miss Aiko's husband actually ended up passing away too, sometime during the raid, unlike him already being deceased at the start of the movie. We still don't know exactly why Mr. Nosaka sugarcoated or hid these facts, but out of pure respect for him, I won't go too deep into detail. Fast forward, and everything is going really great for Nosaka and baby Keiko. No. Everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. The daily arguments occurring every single second. Baby Keiko was way too young to swallow hard food as well, and Nosaka was forced to buy his own items because the relatives always felt disrespected. So having to move out, take care of a baby, and general food rations being low, at just 14 years old, he just had to start stealing. I mean, there was no other choice. Day after day after day of being alone, the duo was slowly losing hope, and Keiko's joyful essence was slowly deteriorating. Fireflies. Fireflies are insects that guide individuals into their own perception of joy and positivity. As kids, we often enjoyed catching these little critters because it was exciting. I look at fireflies as nature's magic, a spark that inspires people to pay closer attention to Earth's surroundings, because you can find beauty anywhere here, and not just where you can initially perceive. They're the flashlights of life, and at night you always hope to see more of them. I think Mr. Nosaka knew this, which is why he incorporated them so heavily into his movie. The Fireflies were a ray of hope for these children, but in reality, hope is meaningless in the grave. Baby Keiko's health is declining at an alarming rate, and these raids are still continuing. But this is where Akiyuki Nosaka's biggest regret would haunt him forever. Sometimes he would go on these missions to find food, intentionally eating everything he could find, and sometimes he'd barely leave anything or even a portion for baby Keiko. Her health got so bad to the point where they needed to go to the doctor. Her body was literally eating itself. But this doctor was expressionless to this fact, barely batting an eye to her. She just needs food, he says. Nosaka shouts, "There is no food!" only to be ignored. This was Nosaka's breaking point. A 14-year-old kid burdened with the passing of everyone he ever loved. Realizing this, he heads down back to the shelter where Keiko is, only to be met with her barely moving. She was chewing on a marble that she thought was candy. But Nosaka brought something for her, and baby Keiko made something for him. It was a rice ball made out of dirt and rocks. She was genuinely confused why Nosaka didn't want it. Right here was a moment every emotion and regret he tried to hide just came out. He knew that it was time to let go. But not just yet. He brings her a surprise watermelon, explaining that he didn't even have to steal it. So he leaves the watermelon on her side and explains that he's gonna go cook something outside. And she thanks him. But baby Keiko never woke up that day. On August 21st, 1945, baby Keiko was gone. But this sad event wasn't his last event. 2 years later, Nosaka was freed from a detention center by his biological father. He had survived the war, and as Nosaka got older, decades down the line, he created a novel titled Grave of the Fireflies as an apology to his sister. Up until the day he passed, he would never go back to read this novel because the regret would never subside. But Nosaka lived a pretty great life after this, becoming an established songwriter and lyricist, winning multiple awards for his creativity, and later becoming a major politician for Japan's House of Counselors. Nosaka passed away as a family man, with his wife and his daughters beside him. Yes, it is a shame that he'll most likely be remembered for his life's hardest time, but time moves on. Generations emerge, and life's brightness continues to inspire billions, and the youthful guidance and hope these Fireflies have to offer.